The vision comes in the night. The prophet Zechariah looks up and sees the courtroom of heaven violently thrown open. Standing in the center of the divine council is Joshua, the highest holy man in Israel, brought before the bench for judgment. And he shewed me Joshua the high priest standing before the angel of the Lord, and Satan standing at his right hand to resist him. Stop right there. This is Zechariah chapter 3, verse 1, in the King James Version. It is a legal proceeding, a cosmic trial. Joshua is not a civilian. He is the high priest of the newly returned exiles. He is the man required by the strict, unyielding laws of Leviticus to wear unblemished, brilliant white linen before he even approaches the earthly tabernacle. If he approaches the holy place on earth in a state of defilement, the consequence is immediate death. But look at how he appears in the throne room of heaven. Now Joshua was clothed with filthy garments and stood before the angel. Read that again. Picture it. The highest spiritual authority of a chosen people, standing directly in front of the angel of the Lord, inside the heavenly council, wearing absolute filth. This is the central mystery of Zechariah 3. Why is the high priest permitted to stand inside the cosmic courtroom in a state of profound defilement? And what impossible legal maneuver allows the angel of the Lord to silence the prosecuting entity standing at his right side without denying the priest's absolute guilt? To understand what is happening in this room, you must realize that modern English translations soften the blow. We read filthy garments and picture a man who has been traveling a long road. We picture dust, mud on the hem, ash from a campfire. A man who simply needs a wash. But the Hebrew text does not say mud. The word used here for filthy is tsuaim. Tsuaim. It is a rare, severe, visceral word. It points directly to human excrement, to vomit, to profound biological and ritual contamination. Sit with that. Joshua is not standing before the Creator in dusty travel clothes. He is standing in the holiest place in the cosmos, covered in biological waste. He is ritually dead, legally indefensible. The purity codes of Israel have been shattered, and standing right next to him is the prosecutor, waiting to read the charges. There is an ancient Aramaic translation of the prophets called Targum, Jonathan. Read aloud in the synagogues of the ancient world. The Targum does not treat these garments as a metaphor for general, vague sin. The Targum points to a specific, historical, genetic boundary that Joshua's family had broken, a defilement of the priesthood itself. I offer the Targum's rendering as one ancient tradition's record, not the final word. But it reveals how the earliest Jewish readers understood the sheer horror of this scene. The filth is real. The contamination is exact. Joshua has brought something into the heavenly courtroom that belongs in the outer darkness. He has no defense. He is not speaking. The text gives him no dialogue. He just stands there, reeking of the curse, while the entity at his right hand prepares to demand his destruction. The prosecution is about to speak. But before the trial can begin, you must understand exactly who is bringing the charges. Look closely at the dark figure standing beside the high priest. Zechariah 3:1 places him in a highly specific architectural location inside the courtroom, and Satan standing at his right hand to resist him. Stop right there. In the English King James Version, that word looks like a proper name. We read it and instantly picture the cosmic rebel, the ancient serpent operating outside the law. But turn the text back to the original Hebrew, and a terrifying reversal happens. The word written on the scroll is Ha-Satan. The definite article is attached. It is not a first name. It is a title. It translates directly as the adversary, or in the strict vocabulary of the ancient court, the prosecuting attorney. This entity is not sneaking into the throne room to wage a physical war. He has not broken in. He is standing exactly where an authorized prosecutor is supposed to stand. He is functioning within the legal framework of the divine council. Watch what the text does. The prophet notes precisely where this prosecutor positions himself. At his right hand. Why the right side? In the ancient Near East, the right hand was the instrument of action, the seat of authority, and the hand of defense. If you were a warrior, your shield was strapped to your left arm, leaving your right hand to swing the sword. If your right hand was blocked, you were defenseless. When a man was placed on trial in ancient Judea, the prosecuting accuser was legally required to stand at his right hand. We see this exact courtroom positioning echoed in Psalm 109, verse 6. Set thou a wicked man over him, and let Satan stand at his right hand. Same position, same purpose. Satan stands at Joshua's right hand to completely paralyze his defense, to ensure the high priest cannot lift his hand to plead his own case. He is there to execute a legal injunction. But the chilling reality of Zechariah 3 is that the accuser does not have to invent a single lie. He is not bringing a false witness. The prosecutor's case is absolute. Picture the scene. The prosecuting attorney does not need to raise his voice. He simply extends a finger toward the tzoim, the filthy garments covered in human excrement. The biological defilement soaking into the very fabric that was ordained by heaven to be spotless white linen. The highest holy man in Israel has brought a curse of profound ritual death directly before the angel of the Lord. By the strict, unyielding letter of Levitical law, Joshua must die. A priest who approaches the holy place in a state of uncleanness is struck down without mercy. And by the strict letter of cosmic law, Satan is completely within his rights to demand that execution. He is standing at the right hand, resisting him, because resisting defilement is the very law of the sanctuary. The accuser is weaponizing God's own holiness against God's own high priest. The legal trap is flawless. Joshua has no right to speak. The angel of the Lord sits on the bench, seemingly bound by his own righteous law. The accuser holds the floor, pointing to the unanswerable, sickening physical evidence. But the prosecution's airtight case hinges entirely on the exact nature of the filth. This is not a metaphor for generalized, daily human weakness. The severe defilement on Joshua's robes carries a highly specific, historic contamination. What exactly was the curse woven into that fabric? And why did the ancient Aramaic synagogues believe it was tied to a forbidden, corrupted bloodline? Zechariah 3:3, King James Version. Now Joshua was clothed with filthy garments and stood before the angel. Stop right there. The English translation is a shield. It protects us from the text. We read the word filthy, and our minds automatically supply a polite image. We picture a weary traveler, a priest who has walked the long, dusty road back from the Babylonian captivity. We imagine a man who simply needs a bath and a fresh change of clothes before he can go to work. Turn the English back into the Hebrew. The word written on the ancient scroll is tzoim, tuim. It does not mean dust. It does not mean road dirt. It does not mean campfire ash. It means human excrement, biological waste, vomit. Sit with that. The root of this word appears in Isaiah 36:12, where an invading army threatens that the starving people of Jerusalem will be forced to eat their own dung. Soa. Same root, same horrifying physical reality. This is the high priest of Israel. Go back to Exodus 28. The garments of the high priest are not just clothing, they are architectural. They are consecrated architecture woven from thread. And thou shalt make holy garments for Aaron thy brother, for glory and for beauty. Brilliant, spotless white linen, the blue ephod, the gold bells. If an earthly priest approached the physical altar with a tear in his robe, or a stain of death, decay, or bodily emission upon his flesh, the holiness of God would break out against him. Death was instantaneous. Defilement cannot survive in the presence of absolute life. Now look back at the heavenly courtroom. Joshua is standing inside the divine council, the holiest location in the cosmos, wearing robes smeared with raw human waste. Picture the scene. The stench, the profound, calculated ritual defilement. He is a walking corpse. He is embodying the curse of death directly in front of the throne. This is why the accuser Satan stands so silently at his right hand. The prosecuting attorney does not even need to open his mouth to present evidence. The evidence is screaming from the linen. By every law written in the Torah, the angel of the Lord should execute Joshua on the spot. God cannot look upon defilement. The case is closed. The priesthood of the restored exiles is legally dead. But why is Joshua wearing this? A high priest does not accidentally wander into raw sewage before entering the heavenly Holy of Holies. This is not a slip on the pavement. This extreme, sickening defilement represents something structural, something inherited, a contamination that Joshua could not simply wash off in a bronze basin. The excrement is a symbol of a shattered boundary. To understand what this filth actually represents, we cannot guess. We have to look at how the ancient Jewish rabbis understood this text when they translated it for the people. When the ancient synagogues read Zechariah 3 aloud, they knew exactly whose filth this was, and they tied it to a specific, historic corruption of the priest's own bloodline. The biological horror of the Tzoim has paralyzed the defense, leaving Joshua ritually dead before the bench. But the ancient Aramaic paraphrase of this exact verse points to a specific, catastrophic sin, committed not by Joshua himself, but by his family. What forbidden threshold did the sons of the high priest cross? And why did the ancient world link it directly to the sins of the pre-flood watchers? Listen to the voice of the ancient synagogue. When the Jewish people gathered in the centuries before the first century, they did not just read the Hebrew scrolls. They read the Targums, Aramaic paraphrases that captured the deep oral traditions, the ancient understandings of what the prophetic visions actually meant. Targum Jonathan looks at the filthy garments of Zechariah 3:3, and it removes the metaphor completely. It strips away the symbol and exposes the historical crime. It translates the verse this way: "And Joshua had sons who took unto themselves wives who were not lawful for priests to take." Stop right there. The filth on the robes is not mud. The filth is a broken bloodline. The excrement soaking into the linen of the high priest represents a genetic and covenantal contamination. The high priest is bearing the guilt of his house directly into the divine council. This is not an apocryphal myth. The canonical Bible confirms this exact historical crime. Turn to the book of Ezra, chapter 10, verse 18. This is the historical record of the exact same era, the return from the Babylonian exile. "And among the sons of the priests there were found that had taken strange wives, namely, of the sons of Jeshua, the son of Jozadak, and his brethren." Read that again. Jeshua, the son of Jozadak. That is the exact same man. Joshua, the high priest. The historical text of Ezra records that his sons, the heirs to the high priesthood, intermarried with. They brought the idolatry and the ritual defilement of the Canaanite and Amorite cultures directly into the holiest bloodline on earth. This is one reading, not the final word, but watch how it locks the cosmic trial into place. The priesthood of Aaron was not a meritocracy. It was an architecture of blood. You could not earn the ephod. You had to be born into it. The boundary was absolute. To corrupt the bloodline of the high priest was to sever the tether between heaven and earth. This is why Satan is standing at the right hand. The accuser knows exactly what this crime is, because he has seen it before. Hold that image. The holiest men, the sons of the sanctuary, descending to take forbidden wives, corrupting the designated boundary between the sacred and the profane. Where have we seen that before? Genesis 6. The sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. The watchers, the entities who left their proper habitation. The sin of the watchers in the days of Noah was not just rebellion, it was illicit mixture. It was the shattering of the barrier between the divine and the corrupted earth. Now look back at the heavenly courtroom of Zechariah 3. Joshua's sons have repeated the exact sin of the watchers. The earthly priests have mirrored the fallen angels. They have mingled the holy seed with the profane. And so the accuser points to the high priest's robes. The tzoim, the biological defilement. The excrement on the linen is the visual, legal proof that Joshua's house has become no better than the corrupted entities of the pre-flood world. The prosecution's case is devastating. If the Creator destroyed the world by water for the mixture in Genesis 6, he must destroy the priesthood of Israel for the mixture in Ezra 10. God cannot play favorites with his own law. The precedent is set. The accuser demands the execution. Joshua stands in silence. The garments are ruined. The priesthood is legally void. The accuser has tied Joshua's family to the oldest, darkest cosmic treason in the archives of heaven. But the linen itself carries laws of engagement written long before the Babylonian exile. What ancient combat protocol did the Dead Sea Scrolls reveal about the high priest's clothing, proving these garments were never just fabric, but weapons of territorial warfare? Look at the specific fabric required to survive a courtroom built of fire. In the book of Exodus, chapter 28, the garments of the priesthood are commanded down to the final thread. Brilliant, unmixed white linen, gold, blue, purple, scarlet. The high priest could not just walk into the presence of the Creator in his street clothes. Exodus 28-43 lays down the absolute, terrifying condition of this wardrobe, that they bear not iniquity and die. Stop right there. The linen was not a uniform. It was a localized, wearable boundary line. It was armor. To understand how the ancient Jewish mind viewed the high priest's clothing, we have to look at the fragments pulled from the desert. Sealed in jars in the caves of Qumran 2,000 years ago, the Dead Sea Scrolls preserved a text the Western world had long forgotten. It is called the Aramaic Levi document. It is a text entirely obsessed with the strict cosmic requirements of the Levitical priesthood. The Aramaic Levi document details the precise rituals of washing and clothing the priest. It treats the linen not just as fabric, but as a spiritual defense system. According to this ancient scroll, the priest must bathe in living water, put on the white linen, and ensure that not a single speck of dirt, blood, or defilement touches the weave. If the boundary of the fabric is compromised, the priest becomes instantly vulnerable to the hostile, unseen entities of the divine council. The prosecuting spirits. I offer this as their telling, not as proven canonical doctrine, but watch how perfectly it locks into Zechariah's vision. The ancient writers understood that the high priest was engaged in territorial warfare every time he approached the altar. The linen was his shield against the accuser. Without the pure, undefiled garments, he had no legal right to speak, no authority to minister, and no protection from the consuming holiness of God. Now, picture the courtroom of Zechariah 3 again. Joshua is not just standing in a dirty robe, he is stripped of his armor. Now Joshua was clothed with filthy garments, and stood before the angel. He is wearing the tsoem, the excrement, the ritual death. He is standing in the ultimate holy place, wearing the exact biological contamination his armor was explicitly designed to repel, by wearing the curse of his corrupted bloodline. The unauthorized mixture of his sons, Joshua, has surrendered his only defense. The Aramaic Levi document reveals the true horror of this moment. The high priest has brought the domain of the fallen watchers directly into the sanctuary, woven into his own clothes. This is the warfare of the linen, and Joshua has lost. The entity at his right hand, Satan, does not need to draw a sword. He does not need to raise his voice. He is simply letting the absolute, unyielding law of the sanctuary execute itself. The broken boundary demands death. Read that again. The prosecuting attorney is winning the case by using God's own holiness against God's own high priest. The trap is perfect. If the angel of the Lord ignores the filth, he violates his own law. If he honors his law, he must execute Joshua and sever the priesthood of Israel forever. Joshua is paralyzed, encased in the undeniable physical evidence of his family's treason. The accuser rests his case on the unquestionable purity of the law itself. But what impossible, fire-scarred legal loophole does the angel of the Lord suddenly invoke to overrule the prosecution without denying the priest's guilt? The heavenly courtroom holds its breath. The accuser has presented an airtight, irrefutable case. The stench of the tsoim hangs in the air, undeniable proof of a corrupted bloodline and a broken boundary. By every law written in the Torah, the high priest of Israel must be struck down on the floor of the divine council. The entity at Joshua's right hand waits for the execution. Then the angel of the Lord speaks. Zechariah 3:2, King James Version. And the Lord said unto Satan, The Lord rebuke thee, O Satan. Even the Lord that hath chosen Jerusalem rebuke thee. Is not this a brand plucked out of the fire? Stop right there. Look closely at what the angel does not say. He does not say Joshua is innocent. He does not argue that the garments are clean, or that the sons of the priesthood were justified in taking forbidden wives. The angel of the Lord completely concedes the facts of the case. The guilt is absolute. The defilement is real. But the angel executes a legal maneuver that violently shifts the jurisdiction of the court. He issues a gag order. The Lord rebuke thee. We see this exact, hyper-specific, legal phrasing only one other time in the canonical scriptures. Turn to the book of Jude, verse 9. The text pulls back the veil on another unseen cosmic dispute. Yet Michael, the archangel, when contending with the devil he disputed about the body of Moses, durst not bring against him a railing accusation, but said, The Lord rebuke thee. Same phrasing, same prosecuting entity, same legal maneuver. When Michael fought for the physical body of Moses, he could not argue Moses' innocence. Moses was a man who murdered an Egyptian, a prophet who struck the rock in disobedience and was forbidden from entering the promised land. The accuser had a perfectly valid legal claim on the flesh of a guilty man. Michael did not win by proving Moses was pure. He won by appealing to the ultimate, sovereign verdict of the Creator. Now look back at the angel in Zechariah's vision. He uses the exact same gag order, but he adds a devastating visual piece of evidence to the bench. Is not this a brand plucked out of the fire? Turn the English back to the Hebrew. The word for brand is oud. It means a charred, smoking, half-consumed stick of wood. It is an object that has already been thrown into the incinerator. Sit with that. The fire is the Babylonian exile. God had already judged Israel. He had already allowed the flames of captivity to consume Jerusalem. For the very idolatry Joshua's family was now repeating. Joshua was a man who survived the furnace. This is the impossible legal loophole. The angel's defense is not purity. The defense is ownership. Picture it. If a man reaches his bare hand into a roaring fire and pulls out a burning branch, that branch is ruined. It is blackened. It is covered in ash and smells of destruction. But because the man burned his own hand to retrieve it, the ruined wood belongs entirely to him. The accuser is silenced. He cannot prosecute a piece of wood that has already absorbed the fire of judgment and been claimed by the scarred hand of the Creator. Satan loses the floor. The prosecuting attorney has been legally gagged by the sovereign choice of heaven, but the trial is not over. Silencing the accuser is only half the problem. Joshua is still standing before the throne, wearing the tzoim. The curse of the biological defilement, the broken boundary of the watchers, is still woven into the fabric, touching his skin. If the high priest is completely paralyzed, legally incapable of lifting his own hands to change his clothes, who inside the divine council is authorized to strip the filth from his flesh? The courtroom is entirely silent. The accuser has been legally bound by the sovereign choice of the bench. The gag order holds. But the high priest of Israel is still standing in the center of the divine council, completely paralyzed, wrapped from head to toe in the tzoim. The excrement is still on the linen. The curse of the broken bloodline is still touching his skin. He cannot serve. A naked or defiled man cannot approach the altar. Zechariah 3-4, King James Version. And he answered and spake unto those that stood before him, saying, Take away the filthy garments from him. Stop right there. Who is the angel of the Lord talking to? He is not speaking to Joshua. He is not speaking to Satan. Look at the perimeter of the room. Those that stood before him. In the ancient Near Eastern understanding of the divine council, these are the attending hosts, the holy ones, the unfallen entities who execute the decrees of the Creator. First Enoch explicitly describes these attending angels standing before the throne, observing the corruption of the earth, waiting for the command to act against the defilement of the fallen watchers. I offer this as that one tradition's record of the heavenly architecture, but watch how perfectly it maps onto Zechariah's vision. Picture the scene. The highest holy man in Israel is ritually dead. Under the strict rules of Levitical purity, he cannot even lift his own hands to untie his sash. The biological defilement on the linen represents the shattered boundary of his priesthood. If he touches it, he owns it. So the angel of the Lord bypasses human agency entirely. He commands the holy angels to step forward. See it. The pure, unfallen entities of the council physically approach the man. They reach out and strip the curse from his flesh. They pull the tzoim off his shoulders. They remove the biological horror of Ezra 10, the genetic contamination, the dark echo of Genesis 6. The unholy mixture is confiscated by the holy hosts. Watch what the angel of the Lord says. To Joshua, the exact moment the ruined fabric falls to the floor. And unto him he said, Behold, I have caused thine iniquity to pass from thee, and I will clothe thee with change of raiment. Read that again. I have caused. Joshua did not repent in this chapter. He did not offer a bull on the brazen altar. He did not sprinkle blood on the earthly mercy seat. There is no temple protocol happening here. This is a sovereign, unilateral confiscation of guilt. The physical removal of the filthy garments is the literal, legal removal of the iniquity of the priesthood. Same courtroom, completely different jurisdiction. The Aramaic Levi document warned that the high priest's linen was a weapon, a wearable boundary line against the prosecuting spirits. Joshua had surrendered his armor to the filth. Now, heaven itself is intervening to rebuild the boundary. The accuser is forced to stand there in silence and watch as the evidence of his airtight case is physically removed from the courtroom by the angels of the presence. The tsoem is gone. The priest stands bare before the throne, a smoking brand pulled from the fire, but entirely cleansed of the curse. But stripping away the defilement only leaves a man naked. To serve in the holy place, the high priest needs more than just the absence of filth. He needs the restoration of complete authority, and there is one highly specific, named piece of clothing still missing from his head. Zechariah has been watching this entire cosmic trial in silence. He has seen the horror of the tsoem, the calculated legal trap of the accuser, the gag order from the bench, and the attending angels stripping the biological defilement from the high priest. But as the cursed fabric hits the floor, the prophet himself cannot stay quiet. The vision is so real, the stakes so absolute, that Zechariah breaks the fourth wall of the divine council and shouts directly into the courtroom. Zechariah 3-5, King James Version. And I said, "Let them set a fair mitre upon his head." Stop right there. Zechariah knows the Levitical law. He knows the architecture of the priesthood. Stripping away the filth only removes the curse. It does not restore the authority. The high priest requires the turban, the mitre, the crowning piece of the linen armor that holds the golden plate across the forehead, reading "Holiness to the Lord." Without the mitre, the head is exposed. The boundary is incomplete. Watch what the text does. The attending angels actually obey the prophet. So they set a fair mitre upon his head, and clothed him with garments. And the angel of the Lord stood by. Read that again. The warfare of the linen is over. The boundary is completely rebuilt. The Aramaic Levi document's terrifying requirement for absolute purity has been met, not by human merit, but by the decree of heaven. Go back to the room where this vision began. The highest holy man in Israel standing before the bench, the accuser positioned specifically at his right hand to paralyze his defense. You have read this chapter 100 times and pictured a weary traveler with road dust on his boots. But tonight, you know what the tsoem actually was. You know the severe biological horror woven into the fabric. You know the ancient Targums saw the corrupted bloodline of Ezra 10, an eerie, historical echo of the fallen watchers in Genesis 6, bringing the curse of unauthorized mixture directly into the Holy of Holies. You know exactly why the prosecuting attorney thought his case was flawless, and you know the loophole of the fire, the sovereign confiscation of the garments. The accuser is still standing in the courtroom, but he is completely out of ammunition. He has no evidence. The high priest is crowned. The lineage is legally secured. Because this trial was never just about saving one man. Look at what the angel of the Lord tells the restored priest in verse 8. "Hear now, O Joshua the high priest, thou and thy fellows that sit before thee, for they are men wondered at. For behold, I will bring forth my servant the branch." The trial was a prerequisite. The cleansing of the filthy garments was heaven securing the priestly bloodline so that a future, final priest-king could step into the timeline. The angel tells Joshua about a stone with 7 eyes, declaring that the iniquity of the land will be removed in a single, catastrophic day. But the exact mechanics of that stone and how it permanently finishes the cosmic war the accuser started, the text leaves that sealed in the prophetic future. The desert is still holding the rest. I offer this as one reading, a careful bridge between ancient Jewish tradition and the canonical text, not the final word. Test it the way the Bereans tested everything. If you made it to the end, comment the word "watched" below. Subscribe to the channel because we are going back into the ancient texts to uncover what the Western tradition set aside. And send this to one person who loves the deep mysteries of the Bible but has never heard the true translation of the filthy garments.